All right. Hey, everybody. Dr. Tom Kerfus here from Georgia Tech. Welcome to the Tom and Lonnie Chat. We got my friend and colleague, Dr. Lonnie Love over at Sandia National Laboratory. Of course, our friend and colleague, Stephen Lamarca from AMT. We've got MC Neville. She is joining us today. We've had some technical difficulties. She was supposed to not join us, but we couldn't figure out how to turn the camera off. So MC is joining us today for this thing. But we have a special guest star. We've got Amber Thomas from AMT. Hey, Amber, I like the sweater. You know, it's sort of very Christmassy there with the red earphones and the green sweater and so forth. But it's awesome. So we're looking great. And today we thought we'd talk a little bit about inaugurations coming up. In fact, probably by the time this thing is posted, we'll have a new president. We'll have President Trump. And we've been hearing a lot of things about what's going to happen and so forth. And talk a little bit about what this means for manufacturing and how manufacturing is going to step up to the plate. But let me just start by summarizing manufacturing is important. I think we all know that. And, it's good for the country. And the reality is no matter which direction we go, it's going to be good for manufacturing because, that is what we do. That is what strengthens the country. That is what moves us forward. But we're going to talk about what's happening and maybe give a little bit of context from the technology side. We're going to stay away from the politics, from the technology side. Okay, so let's just sort of kick it off. Amber, you're the guru over here. Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and so forth, and then let's go.
Okay, I guess my background is at AMT. This is my 40th year at the association doing government relations, and thank you. It's a remarkable achievement, I know, these days to stay anywhere for 40 years. Anyway, this is like, over the past several years, it's like years we've not seen before. And I think with the second term of President Trump, it's going to be an exciting year for manufacturing. I think, manufacturing and, our domestic industry is really, President Trump's top priority. And I think manufacturers are generally happy with the result of the election because of that. I can take it from here and tell you that President Trump has a big agenda. And many of his top priorities are going to impact manufacturing. And we're just now waiting to see how that's going to play out.
Right. And I can say, look, I've served in both Republican and Democrat administrations and helped out. And manufacturing is always something that they want to support and move forward. And it is a good thing, right? And so, it should be exciting. And so here's an opportunity. And I think really what happens here is, okay, we're going to see some change. And that change is going to open up some new opportunities and so forth, which is very exciting. So yeah, good. Well, I don't know, guys, Stephen, Lonnie, and any thoughts? I mean, we're going to get into a couple of, we're going to start to move over to the technical, technology part. In fact, actually, let's just kick off, right? I mean, sort of one of the big things, of course, is we're saying, well, hey, manufacturing. So, there are a lot of efforts. I'll use the T word. You talk about tariffs, but look, if tariffs come in, what does that mean? We got to make more stuff here in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So, okay, we got to manufacture more stuff. Okay, so we've got to figure out how we're going to make more stuff. We've got to be, our factories are going to be busier. What about all the people, that we've got to staff in the factories? And right now we're hearing, well, we don't have enough people. So it's great. We're creating jobs. But frankly speaking, I think there's going to be technology coming along that's not only creating jobs, but filling those jobs. And one of those techs is AI. So anybody want to tackle the AI thing? Do we think Terminator's coming along here and going to take over our plants, or what do you think?
Well, I'm seeing a lot. It's changing so rapidly. That's what's really interesting. Yeah. Is like when ChatGPT came out, it was like, oh my gosh, and people started using it. It was like, this is absolutely incredible. Now it's I heard somebody say that AI is not going to remove jobs, but if you don't know how to use AI in the future, you really probably won't have a job. And so I think people should be really leaning in and at least dabbling in it so that they're aware of what you can do with it. Amber?
I was just going to say it's been a priority for this past administration. I don't know if any of you watched President Biden's farewell speech, but he did bring up, saying that AI is probably the most consequential technology of our time and maybe even all time. And I will say, and he warned again, cited the opportunities, but warned against the challenges. Going into the Trump administration, I think he is very excited about the opportunities that AI presents, particularly in the energy arena and defense areas. And so I would expect continued focus on looking at the technology, making sure that we are, I hate to use the term regulation because everybody, backs up, but properly regulating it so that we're using it in the best ways possible. I don't know if you guys have any comments on any type of framework how government could help boost the applications, but I think that's what we would be looking at during this Trump term.
Yeah. And I mean, I agree 100%. And when we talk about regulations again, I agree, Amber. People are like, oh, well, it's sort of restricting in the whole bit. But some of this is just going to be, look, when I buy an AI package, Lonnie, you're 100% correct. AI is just I think about this as sort of the calculator, right? When the TI-30 came out back in what was it, probably the 80s, and all of a sudden you have these calculators. People are like, oh, well, now we can't do math anymore. And has it been really critical that I can't do long division? I don't know, right? I mean, I think I do okay with my calculator, but the reality is now AI, it's going to be taking a lot of data and helping you out. But, we use it anyway. When you're using Google Maps or Apple Maps to drive around and so forth, that's fine. But part of it is going to be, let's make sure that the data that are being collected are protected, right? So I think a lot of us, let's say in our shops, we do some proprietary things. It might even be the feeds and speeds or which tooling we're using or coolant and so forth. And you know that. And okay, well, if you've got AI running on your machine that helps you build your control charts and things like that, let's make sure that that information isn't going out so other people can you lose your competitive edge. Those are the types of things sort of thinking about. But other things, even like connectivity. I think a lot of plants, a lot of shops are they're connected up. They have broadband connection and so forth. But getting more broadband connection out to our manufacturing environments are going to help tie us together and so forth. So there's some simpler things that are out there. Where you say, yeah, we should get this information, this capability out there, which is great. Last thing I'll just say is even on education. I think all of us are probably old enough that we might have taken typing class.
Oh yeah, that's where all the girls
go. Now it's not typing; it's called keyboarding. And to me, and you learn how to use a spreadsheet, whether it's Excel or whatever, or Google Sheets, But now we'll also be learning about how to use AI and how to use it appropriately and so forth to help us move along. Those are the types of things that we're going to need. And by the way, the AI, let's say in conjunction with virtual or augmented reality, is going to help you in the machine shop, because your safety glasses are going to say, "Whoops, you don't have the part in the chuck right," or "Oh, yep, yeah, I'm changing an insert. This is an 8-sided insert, and I know that I've only used 7 out of the 8. You still got one more edge, or no, you just rotated. You've actually already used all 8 edges. Don't use that first edge again. It's time for a new edge. And oh, by the way, I know that you're going to use that next edge shortly. I've ordered you a whole new set of inserts because they're I know you don't have any more left." I mean, these are the types of things that we're going to see, and it's really going to make our lives easier, right? Steven, I can tell you want to say something there, man.
Yeah, I agree with, and I appreciate everything that everybody's said so far. It's such a beautiful thing to me looking at it's a perfect example of how we get to observe that with every new opportunity, there's also risks. And I love what you said earlier about the calculator, because oh no, you can't do long division in your head. Like, shame on you for needing a calculator. But like, if you think about what the calculator did for so many people, they don't need to think about arithmetic anymore. There is a computer chip for that. Now you get to focus on the semantics of the mathematics, which is okay, are you following the right order of operations? Now, instead of being focused, because of the calculator, instead of everybody having to focus on simple arithmetic, they can focus on algebra, and then the next level, calculus, and then differential equations after that. But I can't help you there. And it's fascinating, because like, AI really is like the next calculator, at least for me right now, with a lot of writing. And you look at the evolution of writing tools. We had the pen, and then the typewriter, and then the word processing, and now we've got AI to help with that too. You have to know how to use these tools. And the whole thing with like policy change is really exciting for me, because without taking sides, the beauty of having a constantly changing and oscillating bipartisan system like we do in this country, you can cry about tariffs all you want, but it was the 4 years prior to that, it was incentives to manufacture in the U.S. And because it oscillates like that, you're getting a change in people who are going to act on those changes. And the advent of AI is awesome, because, I think TSMC, I might be getting that order of those 4 letters wrong. They finally they're close to getting approval from the Taiwanese government to manufacture 2 nanometer chips in the US, which is great, because that's just in time for this this event horizon that we have passed in AI development. So there's a lot of opportunity, and of course a lot of risk, and we can only just keep our heads down, stay working, and hoping that the coin flips in our favor. And I think it will.
If I can mention another like huge issue that's really going to impact manufacturers, and something that the Congress and the president want to take care of as soon as possible, is the expiration of the 2017 tax cuts, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which was Trump's landmark tax legislation. Most of the tax cuts in that bill are scheduled to expire between now and I think 2027. And so Congress right now is working on a way to get this extension of some of the most important provisions in that bill passed as quickly as possible. And I will mention two that directly impact manufacturing, and that is bonus depreciation. It started out at 100%. That is a way to help manufacturers upgrade their equipment, very quickly, and to, apply these technologies that we've been talking about. That's on the table, and also expensing of R&D costs. In the last, in the tax bill, it was changed from expensing to amortization of R&D costs. So you'd have to kind of depreciate your R&D costs rather than write them off in the first year. So those are two really important provisions. Right. Taxes get kind of boring, but manufacturers, I will tell you, the number one priority for most of them, this year and maybe the next, is passing this huge tax bill that will really help, I think, spur innovation and growth in this domestic manufacturing sector.
Yeah, Amber, that's an excellent point. If you take a look at it, let's talk about the R&D. spurring innovation, yes, but I think it'll also, what it's going to do is it's going to take that innovation and move it directly into production and operations as people are getting, as you said, hey, I'm going to replace my 30-year-old machine tool, now I'm going to get a new one, all the great bells and whistles. And then to be, tagged in with a lot of the workforce development type of things that are going to be going on, is, okay, I've got all these great bells and whistles. Now I've got a workforce that can use these and we can really move it forward, and again, things like, as we go back, we go back to AI, those things are going to help us really leverage the heck out of it. And frankly speaking, right, what this does, and this is what, the president, it doesn't matter which president, it doesn't matter which Congress, but really what they're targeting now is economic prosperity and national security. And you know what? Manufacturing is a cornerstone for both of those. So we continue to strengthen it. We continue to move it forward. You can talk about the energy stuff. When we say energy independence, that's great, but now we're in a position where it's not only energy independence, it's energy dominance, as we start to move forward. And so, how do we make sure that we stay at the lead and, we're not at the mercy of somebody else, let's make money off of our own innovations, that we're going to be putting forward. And, let's make sure that we're producing things that we can use and that make a difference in our lives over here. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that has me really excited. So I love trade. There's a classic quote from like the 1800s is when products stop crossing borders, soldiers will. So trade is really, really important. However, I do believe also that these threats cause us to step back. And I think about like the CHIPS Act. So we had given up on the semiconductor industry for decades, and now we're reshoring it. Right now, the supply chain is we're having really difficulties sourcing forgings. And when I go back to to manufacturing, holy cow, if we can't get the feedstocks, we're in trouble. And so we're starting to see movement to look at what are the things that we can mine on this continent. And so I'm seeing like UTEP is restarting their mining and minerals program. And I mean, so in some respects, it's exciting because it's never as bad as you think. It's never as good as you think. It's usually somewhere in between. But this is a forcing function for us to look at, what are areas that we gave up in the past, and how should we start to reestablish them and not do it the same way. Kind of this
Right.
is where the workforce is really important. AI/ML is really important. I think about the supply chain from the manufacturing perspective, and the company that always blows me away is Amazon. I mean, I can get something the next day, right? They can kind of anticipate what I need and put it in front of me going, yeah, you need this product. Now, that's not good. But if I'm a manufacturer, if I can somehow harness that to where I can project what I need and get out ahead of it, it'll make you more competitive. So
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited about where all this is going. It's kind of doing a big reset on everything that goes into manufacturing.
And I agree with that. I think the bottom line is, and you used the word, if we can somehow harness that. But I think at this point in time, in many instances, we know how to harness it. And so the reset is important.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we've gotten out of areas, as you said, mining and so forth, because, okay, they were rough on the environment. They were rough on the workers and so forth. But today we know that much better. But the difficulty is in getting it restarted. So much of the investment in restarting is going to be great. And yeah, it's going to take some time, but we can do it better. We can do it in a safer manner, in a better manner for the environment, and it's good for the nation. So I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of where we're going, and a reset or a little bit of a change in direction, I think really allows us to make some innovative leaps.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to look at the semiconductor industry. So Sandia has a fab for making chips, and I was talking to one of the guys there, and he said with the CHIPS Act, we are building. There's a huge Intel plant that's been built in Albuquerque, and Arizona is going gangbusters. The problem is that there's not enough electrical engineers. You could take every single, the message I heard was you could take every single electrical engineer that's graduating in the United States, and that's still not enough, and throw them at the semiconductor industry. So we're going to have to think differently. And that's what's exciting. I think, how do we automate a lot of this? How do we use emerging tools? You mentioned, we talked about AI, and how do you use augmented reality and virtual reality? And then take those lessons and apply it to the other sectors as well. It's pretty exciting.
Well, yeah, and especially, I mean, let's look at automotive sector. I mean, you can say, well, how fast will electric cars, come and so forth, and what are they going to? They're coming, right? And you're going to have this broader market space, But I think we all know making an electric car is very different than making an internal combustion engine car.
Yeah.
So as we build new plants and we design new systems, I mean, here's an opportunity, and I get it, right? And I mean, let's face it, China has gotten the jump because they have been planning this for some time, and what we're seeing now is, okay, let's make sure we give the U.S. automakers, an opportunity to get product out there, and it's going to take some time. But the reality is, I think actually there's a great opportunity to recapture a lot of that market space, over here in the U.S. It's also going to really work its way out into smaller and medium-sized plants out there. I know a car, General Motors, Ford, whomever, they've got a big engine plant, they've got a big transmission plant. But when you're making electric motors, you can have smaller plants, and they might even be, 20, 30, 40, 50 person plants, and you might have 50 of those making the electric motors that are being shipped together. It's great for us because basically those are made locally, and I don't have to wait weeks for that motor to come from overseas. It just comes from just down the road, and with those 50 plants that are making the electric motors, if one, if there's a power outage, or if you've got a tornado or you got a flood and it takes out a couple plants, I still have another 45 plants that are moving along. So it's really distributed, it's resilient, it helps our small manufacturers, but we've got to move into that area. How many small manufacturers of motors do we have out there? But we can do it, right? And that's where technology is going to help us out, integration together. So anyways, I'll get off my soapbox. Go ahead, Stephen.
I love that you said all of that, because there's three things that I think we need to look at going forward when it comes to the automotive market. The first is trust in electric vehicles, not necessarily trust in batteries, but the trust in electric vehicles. Like, electric motors are great. They are a huge part of our future. They're not entirely going to replace the internal combustion engine, but they're a huge part of our future, and they do need to be the power source, or the drivetrain, the powertrain of the economy car going into the future. Where that power source comes from, I don't think it's going to be conventional batteries or batteries as we know them right now, because batteries are a huge problem. But if you look back at the manufacturing industry, how many CNC machines do you see out there with an internal combustion engine powering the spindle? None. That doesn't exist. So, like, the viability of EVs is absolutely there, and it is going to be a big part of the automotive industry, whether people like it or not. Secondly, I've said this before many times in front of you guys, in fact, about the opportunity for closing that skills gap that we love talking about. Think about how many auto mechanics are out there. And as EVs take over, we're going to need less of them. Well, guess what? They're going to need jobs, which sounds like a problem initially, but get them on a machine tool. Turn them into machinists. They have the core fundamentals and cognitive problem-solving skills required for becoming machinists. And thirdly, we have an excellent opportunity right now to study the quartz crisis of the 70s and early 80s, when quartz watches took over, because before quartz, like, mechanical watches were mechanical clocks were a necessity for both, like, navigation, but also for timekeeping. And the quartz crisis, when Japan came out with quartz oscillating timekeeping, where watches went from 2 springs and a bunch of gears to tell you the time to a computer chip and a battery, it nearly destroyed the Swiss watch industry. We need to study that to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen to automotive, because automotives are a much bigger deal than wristwatches. And that's also a fun little insight, because that's going to hang on to your ICE vehicles, because they're going to become luxury goods in the future.
Oh, there you go.
Stephen, I've been worried about the conversion to electric vehicles, but because there's so much energy that's going to be required. And so I was like, it's like our grid can't handle it. And so I was like, well, I don't see that happening. Well, I'm talking to James Peary, and in Albuquerque, we have a lot of solar, and there's like 300 days of sunlight. So he's got 10 kilowatts of solar power. And I was like, that's a lot. He goes, I'm not going to need a gas station. He's going all electric. So he has surplus power for his house, and it's going to be power for his car. He will have an internal combustion engine, a car with an IC, but it's for long distance. But he's going to be completely off the petroleum grid and completely off the electrical grid. It's wicked. Now I'm like, and the payback time, the cost, because of manufacturing, the cost for solar has plummeted. And the payback period, it used to be like 20 years. It's now like 6. So I'm telling my wife, I was like, I guess we're going to go solar. I guess I'm going to buy electric
and there's
vehicle.
also going to be I think we're going to have a huge renaissance with nuclear power, because there's still a lot of irrational fear to nuclear power about, like, oh, well, we don't want, Chernobyl to happen in the U.S. It's not going to happen, because literally in every port in the U.S., there is a fleet of naval vessels that are running on nuclear, and they haven't blown up yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is 100% correct. In the reality, I have sort of 2 thoughts there. Then I want to turn it over to Amber to give us, our sort of last thoughts. This is sort of this conversation could go on for hours. But number one, Lonnie, you mentioned, your Sandia's director, James Peary, over in Albuquerque. My brother lives in the Chicago area. He's got solar, and he's got an electric car and the whole bit. And he hasn't paid for electricity, even though he's driving his car, and he hasn't paid for it in the past couple of years. So you don't have to be all the way down in Albuquerque. Even Chicago will pull this thing off. The other thing, though, and I do mention it, then, Stephen bringing up energy, I think what I'm really looking forward to on some of these things are these public-private partnerships. You talk about the CHIPS Act and so forth, but unless industry gets behind it, government can't spin all this up on their own. They can start it off. And that's what we're seeing, right? We're seeing investments in the new administration, the Trump administration. We're seeing that, okay, we're going to invest in certain areas to kickstart some of this stuff. But Stephen, you mentioned, nuclear. Well, I think who's it? Microsoft that's bringing 3 Mile Island back online. But it's a very safe reactor. You've got Google that's investing in small modular reactors and so forth. Look at SpaceX, and Blue Origin in terms of, they're taking over low Earth orbit, heavy lift and things like that. So, and they're doing it cost effectively. So the government will spearhead these things. And then how do we transition to the private sector, which really makes sense? So I think it's a very exciting time. Anyways, I know we're getting close to our 30-minute mark here. I'm going to turn it over to Amber. A few more thoughts here.
Well, just relevant to the conversation about energy, the president has said, I would expect less focus on electric. He is interested in nuclear. But he has said that he wants to invest in the traditional, the big 3 car companies. And so there won't quite be as much attention on electric as the previous administration. I guess I would just close by urging anybody watching to pay attention. This is a great time now at the beginning of a congressional session to reach out to your member of Congress, maintain a consistent relationship so that you're a source of information for them. Talk to them about the importance of provisions in the tax bill. They're hearing from a lot of people. And so manufacturing should put their, voice in the game there. Tariffs, we will have to play, defense on that. Work that they are tariffs that are working rather than hurting American businesses through, higher inflation, higher, product costs. Also immigration. We're not really into the weeds on the immigration debate, but I will say, I think maybe you guys have seen in, a couple weeks back that there was an argument about H-1B visas, which allow, foreign students, to, in the STEM fields to come and work at U.S. companies. There was a debate between Elon Musk and, somebody else, a more hardline, immigration loyalist, about whether these are valuable. And so then we get into the debate there. So because we are supportive of, broadening the visa program to bring skilled workers into the U.S. So manufacturers should listen to the president, take what he says with, a grain of salt. He actually, starts with an extreme and kind of comes down to a more reasonable approach. And, he's going to have to do that because, the margins in the Senate and the House are not enough that you can get much past without some Democratic support. So we hope for more bipartisanship, although I'm not expecting it, but just urging, manufacturers to keep in touch with their members and pay attention to what's going on.
Good. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you. I mean, I think it does make sense, right? It is, when you say about, well, the president starts here and sort of, it's the art of the deal, right? I mean, that's his book. I mean, that's sort of negotiation. Yeah. You negotiate, right? And then, you got two sides here and you kind of work your way to the middle. And of course it's going to happen. And I think, the interesting thing for U.S. manufacturing is going to be, you're going to see where things are going to go. Clearly, they're going to, whatever decisions are made, because of national security, because we want to improve the economy, we want to grow and we want to be prosperous, it's going to be good for manufacturing. The real question is, how do you pivot your manufacturing operations and where you're looking, and what you invested in and so forth to make sure that you can fit into the direction that the country is going to go. And for a manufacturer, again, agreed. Pay attention to what Congress is doing, pay attention to what the president's doing, and make sure you pivot in the right direction, because we've got to support manufacturing. Without it, we've got big problems. So to me, whichever direction they go, we'll make sure. And by the way, we'll keep you up to speed on the technologies and so forth that are going to fit in and that are being pushed, so that you guys, our loyal podcast followers, will know what's going on and really how to leverage the heck out of what's happening there. So, exactly. All right. Well, with that, I want to, Amber, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Very exciting. And as always, Stephen, great to see you. Lonnie, of course, great stuff. And MC, it's just good to see your smile. MC, if you haven't, you got to go see MC, down at AMT and so forth. Yeah. She keeps us in line, and make sure that at least our podcasts are at least PG, if not G, right? and PG is just pretty good, but G is good, right? So anyways, All right. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye-bye.